I'm really grateful that you have all chosen to spend your Tuesday early evening with us today. We're going to be embarking on a really important conversation here, arguably about the future of the transition movement here in the United States. So the topic today is youth empowerment, youth leadership, and intergenerational collaboration. So again, I want to acknowledge you all and thank you all for being here. And I want to give thanks and appreciation for the amazing folks who are going to be part of our panel or our circle that's going to be holding this conversation today. We want this conversation to be interactive. We want you all to be tapping in to that youthful spirit and energy that's in there, in your heart. And today we're going to be working with a slightly expansive and poetic definition of youth. We're going to be acknowledging particular age groups. We're going to be acknowledging power dynamics, but we are also going to be thinking about youth as this energy of celebrating life and visioning and dreaming and coming together in new ways. And we're also going to be talking about how elders and folks who are carrying experience and so many wonderful gifts can connect meaningfully to youth in their communities and bring them into their initiative work in a meaningful way. So lots to talk about. There's a lot of richness. And again, check into your body, start tapping into that energy. I don't know if any of y'all have a time machine available for y'all, but music, I understand, is one of the best ways to travel through time. So we're going to be starting with some music that may bring back memories for some of y'all, but also presencing really relevant issues and challenges that our youth of today are struggling with and honestly doing amazing and profound work around. So tap in, get comfortable, bring your creativity. And for folks who have been part of other national network strategy conversations, we are going to be doing things a little bit differently today. So I thank you all for, again, joining us on the journey, being part of the ride. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm also dropping a link right here in the chat, and please let me know if you're having trouble accessing. Everyone should have the appropriate access. And this is going to be our activity document for today. So go ahead and click on it, take a look at it, but I'm going to be engaging with it and getting us started with that music. One sec, just gotta share screen. There we go. All right.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, your life it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. You better stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
How did that feel for everyone? I saw some dancing. By the way, dancing is highly encouraged today. Yes. So going back, I want to kind of start with this theme of intergenerational collaboration. And for folks that are on the document or accessing the document, you can see an image that I created, and it has kind of the two circles coming together with the Vesica Pisces and the Earth in the center. So that image just kind of like came to me when I was really dreaming and thinking about what intergenerational collaboration is all about. And from my understanding and perspective, intergenerational collaboration is what makes us human. And our ability to recognize the special moment in time that we share on the earth, carrying different experiences, different gifts, and our ability to come together across that difference is magic. It's powerful. And we're being called to do that now more than ever. So I want to acknowledge John Foran, who will be helping to kind of anchor and guide this space with me today. And in case I didn't mention this, my name is Jess, and I'm the programs coordinator, Transition US. I'm just really immersed in the moment, but I want to acknowledge John as a dear friend, as an ally, as someone who knows how to do intergenerational collaboration well. And I just want to, again, appreciate him for the way that he moves in his position as a professor and creating a space where young people feel like they can also have something to teach. So I really, really respect that. And John, I love you for that. And I'm going to turn it over to you to just kind of like seed your intention for today and let us know how you are. But over to you, John.
Well, Jess, thank you. I certainly wouldn't be here without Jess Barfray's existence on the planet. It's a long story, but EcoVista, our transition initiative, which will be featured today with some members from it speaking and contributing, sort of originated in a kind of magical process without any clear understanding of what we were doing. And it has evolved into the experience of my life in terms of local activism, being able to make my teaching relevant to the moment, being able to provide something that students don't get enough of in the university, which is basically getting outside the university to do things. And did not prepare a statement, Jess, and so rather than ramble in the way I'm known to do, I think I'll leave it right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. I also want to presence and acknowledge our panelists who are here today, bringing in their youthful perspectives. I want to let you all know that we were able to have a couple meetings to just kind of sit and get to know each other. And some really amazing thoughts and reflections came forward around these questions. How do we empower the youth? How do we recognize youth leadership in a way that isn't paternalistic or demeaning, but doing it in partnership and solidarity? What does intergenerational mean? Generational collaboration look like, and what does it mean to us, really? So I want to start with recognizing folks from Cooperation Humboldt. I'm going to do this backwards. I'll acknowledge my home initiative second, but I'm going to start with Cooperation Humboldt. We have Oscar Mogoyan and Sabrina Miller, who are doing tremendous work around disaster preparedness and response. I was able to sit with them under a different for a different conversation around that work, and just was blown away by the level of intentionality and just like humble confidence. It's just like I don't even know what you call it, but I was blown away And I was also really excited to introduce them to two people that I dearly love and respect from EcoVista, who I've been able to connect with deeply as friends and also allies and colleagues. So I want to recognize Ash Valenti and Elvia Cruz, who are here with us today as well, and acknowledge that they're doing tremendous work, leading one of the only youth-led transition initiatives that I know of right now. So there's a lot of amazing work that's been coming out of EcoVista. And again, folks were able to sit from Cooperation Humboldt and EcoVista and share ideas about how we could keep this work going, how we could expand on it, meeting each other's needs, bringing solutions forward. So we want to use that energy today. And again, thank you all for being here. Sabrina, Oscar, Elvia, and then Ash, if y'all just want to say something briefly to kind of state your intention and like what your hopes are for the space today.
So I'll go ahead and start. Hi, everyone. Oscar here. Good to see everybody. Thanks for being here. My intention with the space is to allow us to be transparent and vulnerable about where we are in this day and age with this type of communication, especially in the United States. There's, conversations of elder abuse. There's conversations around, just not seeing eye to eye and being on completely different, platforms. But I really do see a lot of similarities in what generations prior to mine have been fighting for, and what my colleagues and my peers fight for today. So acknowledging that, we aren't where we should be, but that can help us get to where we need to be. And I'll pass to Ash.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ash Valenti, they, them from EcoVista. I am happy to be here today. Intergenerational collaboration is one of our core values at EcoVista. Being right at a university community, getting participation from 18 to 20-something-year-olds is a no-brainer. But getting deeper connections in the community takes a little more work. We have a few elders that are part of EcoVista, and in the future we're looking for more so that that knowledge in the community is able to be shared. And the same goes for young folks. We have an elementary school that in the future we hope to engage more. So I guess those are some of my ideas. Sabrina.
Hi, my name is Sabrina with Cooperation Humboldt, and I'm here because having had an experience as a youth where I feel like my community failed me, and that was my experience, and I didn't feel like there was a way for me to like be a part of any type of movement or any type of meaningful community like engagement in a way. And it was a big part of my struggle growing up. And I didn't even know that that was something that was of value or that was essential to one's well-being, because it just wasn't talked about. And so I'm here today to kind of take my personal experience coming out of like my youth and my experience working with youth now in my community, and just want to kind of connect with other people around this idea of intergenerational collaboration and giving young people an opportunity to step into this work of creating community resilience and allowing that to be something that is both healing for all parties involved, and kind of just like recognizing the value of collaborating with our with people from all of the spectrums of the age range, and then maybe try to brainstorm or spark some type of inspiration of how we can bring young people, bring our elders into the work that we're doing in a collaborative way.
I guess I'll go. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ovia, pronouns she, her, hers, and I honestly I'm really excited to be in this space because it's really nice seeing that when I heard about transition, like I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And like while I was at school at UC Santa Barbara, I started learning a lot about climate change and just like I started going down this like doomer perspective because I feel like deep down I'm a doomer and like I was just like, damn, all these things are happening and like and will continue to happen and like I just wanted to like find a way to help out and like felt also somehow that my classes weren't like providing the spaces to like be like, okay, like these are like the things we are facing, but like how can we address that? And like I don't know, I just felt like it was shortcoming until like I started taking some classes with Professor John Foran and the class The World in 2050 really just like help open my eyes to more about community and like building community resilience and like I think it really struck to me and like I decided I wanted to like get involved with EcoVista, which is like one of those transitions but it's essentially like we're trying to make Isla Vista, like the college town near our school, much more sustainable. And through that we've been doing like different projects and like right now we're focusing like a lot on oh thanks. Oh my god, we've been focusing like on grants and trying to also kind of make it a nonprofit because like we've noticed that like even though like we want to do a lot of stuff, there's also like the whole gap between like paying people to do like that type of work. But so like we basically meet every 2 weeks in our general meetings and John has a class on Ecovista and people could like take it and audit it and stuff. And but I think essentially like I'm really happy that like through time like I've been able to like find spaces like this, and thanks just for inviting me to this. And Jess has been an amazing person, and super inspired, and thank you all, and pass it back to Jess.
Awesome. Yay. I feel so happy. Yeah, and my intention, and this was something I'm just echoing that came out of our initial conversations, is like I would love for us all to feel inspired and energized after today's session to really keep this conversation going. As I mentioned at the top, like there's so much to cover under these categories of youth leadership, empowerment. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do we analyze it? And intergenerational collaboration. There's so much there. So I'd love for more conversations to happen. Again, we're trying to get together and tap into the collective genius and wisdom here and at least name some bare bones work or priorities that we can look to move forward around engaging more youth in the movement. I'll speak plainly, like often in transition spaces, we don't see a lot of younger people participating. And instead of seeing this as like a bad thing or we're sad about it, we're going to see it as an opportunity. Where can we meet youth where they're at? How can we empower them to do the work that they are already doing? I think it's easy sometimes to celebrate youth for their leadership, as you know, as we should, and they deserve all of that recognition and praise. And at the same time, we also have to have a really important conversation around the immensity of the stress and the feeling of the weight of the world on your shoulders, which many generations have felt, but just considering the unique circumstances we're in here, compounding crises, you know, young people. Elvia used the word doomer earlier, and for folks who don't know that, it's a meme, it's a riff on the Zoomer generation, or Generation Z, and then there's the boomer. I'm sure you all have heard it. Memes are a whole other topic that we can get into later, but basically young people, because they're so immersed in the information, they know what's going on, they feel a sense of despair. And so things like having a retirement plan, things like having children, things like feeling like they can grow up in a stable, healthy world are being deeply called into question. And that's a lot to carry as a young person. So again, it's like also a shout out and a recognition to elders who have also been doing this work. I started us off with Buffalo Springfield because that was speaking to a very important moment in our time together as a species, journeying together on this planet, this beautiful, delicate planet that we all share. So again, tapping into that energy of why you are part of transition. Like, why are you here? Why do you feel like the world needs to be better? What is that about? So I want us to, again, connect with that and recognize what young people are holding right now as well. so we can bring together that dialogue and unlock what we each can contribute to this conversation and build the solutions that we need now. And so what Elvia mentioned again earlier, transition offers solutions, and that's a beautiful thing. So I think this would be a good place for young people to join us. I'm going to take a pause there. It's a lot. And then I'm actually going to bring us back to our activity document. So again, that link is in the chat. And if folks could join us there, that would be great. Okay. I'm going to actually go ahead and share screen as well, just so that we can be on the same page together and be looking at the same things.
I think you could send the link one more time. I joined late. Oh,
yeah, I could do that.
Never mind.
Or did you get it? Okay.
Yeah, 2 people just sent it as I said that. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Here we are. Wonderful. So I want to direct us over here to this kind of block of resources that we're calling inspiration. So here I have a quote from Margaret Mead. Take a moment to kind of read through that. And if you hear any noise, speaking of intergenerational collaboration, I'm so grateful for my siblings. They've come to pick up their nephew for some time together. So yeah, shout out to aunts, uncles, grandparents who are helping us out right now during this time. But yeah, this quote here really spoke to me, and I felt like it was a good way to kind of ground this. And here again, you'll see some resources that I think are really relevant to these larger conversations. Activism in the grandmother hypothesis for elders or folks who are carrying lots of, experience having lived on this planet. I invite you all to take a look at those resources. It's bringing in some anthropological perspectives, acknowledging the real power and value of grandparents and specifically grandmothers as providing necessary resources and information that can allow babies and children and young people to thrive and flourish, and also provide support to mothers. So again, when we're talking about intergenerational collaboration, we're talking about what does it mean to be human? So just brief tour here. Again, this is an activity doc for folks to visit after this session. Please take a look at it. This one in the center from the Free Child Institute. This is amazing. This is an amazing resource. I think we should come back to it. If you go through, I'm just going to go ahead and open this link, and then we're going to just switch gears back to our panel. But I really wanted to make sure that we took a look at this resource here. Youth issues. Extremely expansive approach here. This is an organization that's coming out of Washington, and they've done a lot of work to challenge the adult-led and centered paradigm and acknowledge we are in a special time and we do need to be empowering our youth. So they've done a lot of legwork here. So for folks who have questions of how do I do this kind of work in my community, this is a great place to start. So it also includes actions. We centered wanting to have some kind of actions that folks feel inspired and empowered to take. This is a good place to go. How do we get youth onto our boards? How do we make sure that programs are youth-led and designed? All of these things are kind of laid out here. All right, so I'm going to stop screen share. And I'm going to go back to our panel. And I'm thinking back specifically to a conversation that we had where we were talking about the power of art and its ability to bring folks together and to think creatively. And I know, Oscar, that was something that was really important to you. So I'm just wondering if you might want to offer us a thread around this.
Right. So, I mean, when you talk about intergenerational, just relationships in general, right? You think about the archetypes, your parents, your grandparents, maybe other elders in the community, bosses as a young person, maybe as someone who's an elder or an adult. You think of your relationships as, grandkids or liabilities or, expenses. because youth and being young is expensive. You make mistakes, you have to learn, and you have to get back up and have someone to teach you how to deal with those negative emotions. All of that to me is an art form, like the art of being a person, the art of being a mentor, the art of being someone that cares. Even now, as I'm speaking, you know, the hardest thing to really acknowledge and to understand is that, like, we have a difficulty and a disconnect just that society taught us to listen less or to be less active as a listener when it's a young person versus an old person. Like you have to fight for that connection, you know, and I do this at work. I work at Adult Day Healthcare of Mad River, which is just a day center for elderlies, and some other individuals. And I have to make sure they know that I'm there and that I care and present. I have to like almost like yell in their face. Otherwise, it's kind of just dismissed as kind of like just an attempt, right? And so there's that constant disconnect. And for me, when I think about like how this relationship is in art, I think about it because we're trying to find mediums to communicate. Right now, the medium is this Zoom conference. Like this is the medium, but without this medium, back and forth email becomes kind of confusing. What is this email about? What does this mean? How does this connect back to the work I'm doing? Is this taking me away from what am I doing? Do I have the capacity to help this young person? You may not, right? And that's just something that we have to acknowledge. And so like the same goes for the young person. Does this person have the wisdom and expertise and the time to help me? You know, they may not, right? And so these are just acknowledgements. And so the art here is knowing that there's going to be that to make it work. Like, what are the similarities that we have? What is it that we both mutually care about? Oh, we're both into disaster response. All right, well, I'm gonna sit here and allow myself to, you know, learn and be a learner, and then allow myself to be, you know, kind of undermined or like, you know, discounted because of, you know, I'm not given the chance to really express myself. My resume isn't as long as these individuals, these people in the community who have lots of lived experience, and I have to live with that. I have to sit with that. I have to accept my own terms. And so I have to find creative ways to stand out, to show interest, to show that I care. And to me, that's kind of an art, right?
I really hear that. And I also just want to let again, our panel know, like, bring in the threads, going back to what you all named as kind of intentions, like we're going to flow together right now. But I know what's also coming to mind too, just off of that point, Sabrina, you mentioned just your own experience as a youth and just wishing that there were things in place to give you the support that you needed. And you also had mentioned some other really important aspects of your story, and just wanted to create space for you to bring that in as well.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, growing up, I was like, as a young child, I feel like I was very conscious of the dysfunction of the world, and just like being born into a very toxic environment. I internalized it all though, because there wasn't really anything around me that was helped me to understand like what was going on. And that it wasn't just me, it was this, you know, broken society I was born into. So I internalized it all, and it resulted in a lot of you know, destructive behavior, behavior that got labeled as, you know, ADHD or misbehaving or behavioral issues, things like that. But really I was just so broken by the world. And, you know, through that leads to, you know, getting medicated and getting diagnosed with things, which perpetuates the issue. And like, I always, in my community, I always like, it was difficult for me to find a job, like as a teenager and as a young adult, because I wanted meaningful work. I always said that. I was like, I just want to love my job. I want to love my job. And I was always met with, you know, you don't have to love your job. You just have to like it enough to make money, to buy things that make you happy. Like literally that was what I was being told. And there was definitely no emphasis placed on like community work. There was no outlet for me to get involved that I was aware of. I mean, I'm sure there was if I look, but like, it shouldn't be the responsibility of a young person to like have to dig deep to find a way to get tapped into their community. That should be something that is given to them by the elders, but that is the responsibility of the adults to engage young people in that work and provide guidance and support and outlets for them to get involved, and to let them even understand that like that service work is essential to one's well-being. Like being of service to your community is a major component of health and wellness, and we're not taught that. And so yeah, through like, it took me moving here to Humboldt and like really getting tapped into the community here and getting involved in volunteer work to even like recognize that like, oh wow, I need this. Yeah, this is great work and it's meaningful, but like I need this for myself, like to be doing this work. And working with youth in the community I work at like a youth shelter. So I work with like a lot of foster youth, a lot of at-risk youth. And I see like, you know, again, it's not necessarily something that's really emphasized as important. There's like that, you know, get you enrolled in school, get you a job, and like yes, those are important things, absolutely. But there's really no emphasis on like, get you involved in the community. Like what feels meaningful to you. And I think that skipping that step, and again, the youth are not going to come, like some might, but not all young people are going to come out and say like, I need community work to feel good about myself. They don't know that that's something that like is important, or that's something that would make them feel good, because to them it just might sound like work. And so like we as adults, or as older people, or people with the lived experience of being young, however you want to word it, need to create ways for young people to get involved in the work that we're doing, where they can feel supported, they can feel inspired, they can feel as though they have the autonomy of what they're doing and are able to lead projects and feel valued, feel essential to their community. And so yeah, I think that's our responsibility to figure that out. It's not their responsibility. And so that's why I'm just hoping to like really emphasize the importance of this, and bring together groups of, or like help inspire groups of people or something, where we can kind of come together and create a way to bring young people into our work, into a way that is meaningful to them.
That was really smart. Thank you for sharing, Sabrina. Go ahead, John.
I guess I'd like to speak from the position of, you know, being in the university. The University of California is a huge entity with some really wonderful to it, and some painfully yes, as the world goes into crisis. So I think it's fair to say that what we might call the business as usual university has failed us in terms of the climate crisis and all the intersecting crises that go with it. The economic crisis doesn't get talked about. The political crisis, the lack of interest in politics because of the lack of interesting choices doesn't get talked about. The cultures of violence that we live through at every level don't make their way into the university as topics or subjects. The pandemic itself has forced the university to, I wish more, had forced the university to ask questions about what it's for. And I think that I speak as a teacher, teachers are going to have to rise to this occasion. Certainly if one speaks about intergenerational action, the college classroom is an opportunity like no other. If the teacher is willing and has the sort of openness to tap into that. And I think all of us whether we're students or community members, teachers, have to ask, how do we change that? How do we change business as usual schooling, where we spend, in my case, all of my life, but so much of our lives? And how do we get the kind of schooling that's outside the box, that meets our needs, that fulfills us, that doesn't deaden us, is life affirming? And again, to come back to Ecovista, but the slip of the tongue is telling. There is a network of educators of all ages called Ecoversities, which is worth looking at sometime, the Ecoversities Alliance. And it really is people from all over the world, inside the school, outside the school, popular education, various really radical alternatives to education that are much more fulfilling, come together in a network and share with each other and take that back to wherever we teach and learn. And Ecovista, of course, has been that in my life. And it took me, most of my teaching life to really understand that you had to go beyond teaching that there's a crisis in at least two ways. One of which is to say, yes, we have a crisis. That's week one. And then to ask, how do we confront this crisis? And to make the class about that. In terms of the climate crisis, make it about the global climate justice movement and make it about alternatives, systemic alternatives like transition, or like buen vivir in Latin America, or like this notion of degrowth that we should all be educating ourselves about, or eco-socialism or ecofeminism. And the final step is to go out in the community and try one's hand at making change according to one's own lights and seeing what happens. Very DIY affair, Ecovista. And I wish more teachers could have the joy of trying to do something like that, because it's infectious and we all grow in so many ways. And I would leave it there for now. As far as Ecovista goes, if you go to the website, ecovistacommunity.com, you'll see the projects. You'll see, probably 90% of this is student driven, young people driven, and organized and led. And this creates change in the world. And so the intergenerationality of that, the opportunity as teachers and students in universities, but anywhere, to make that happen, to put the pressure on whomever to make that happen more. The world is demanding that of us. And the secret is, if you follow that, you grow, you have fun, and the world will change. Keeps you young. Peace back.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I agree with Sabrina and John a lot. I can't imagine not being involved in the community. But there's been times when I didn't have an easy way to find that, and my life was pretty disheveled. But now I have Ecovista and Food Not Bombs, where we make meals for the community 5 days a week. And I just feel so fulfilled with that, being able to be involved in the community gardens. Oh, I should also mention I'm on the local parks board. So a collaboration of Ecovista and the local parks board was creating a food forest that has 6 fruit trees and understory crops. So like a spot on that just opened up, and John invited me to his class to talk about being on the parks board. And I was able to say to the class, a spot just opened up for appointment. It's supposed to be a democratic position, but it happens pretty often that people will just resign and then there's an appointment, which is almost easier to get in. Although, you know, it's kind of give and take with that. But I think, you know, everybody in the class there, not everybody there are in IV. So I said, if you're in a different area, you know, look at what boards and local government stuff is happening in your area and start attending those so that you know what's going on and when positions open up. So that's, you know, an important way that people can get involved. I described like all the ways that, you know, the Parks Board position is important. From my view, like that we can be using regenerative practices instead of more concrete. You know, we can use techniques that like store rainwater and things like that. Our policies affect houseless people. You know, so like there's so many reasons to care about these local government positions and the power they have. So yeah, Oscar or Elvia, do you want to say something?
I guess I could just say something about how I do also agree with John saying that the university system has failed us because I think like so I was co-chair of UCSB Environmental Justice Alliance and the UC Sustainability Office of the President or something like that, like invited us to go speak because they reached out to us saying like, do you guys have any recommendations for their sustainability practice? And it was just kind of like threw us off. No, it doesn't. It was just kind of like, whoa, like this is a lot. Like this is a lot to recommend. Like we had to go through like the sustainability packet, and it was like a lot of pages, like 90 something pages. But like overall, there was just a lot of things like not just a technicality, but we just noticed that there wasn't a lot of like environmentally just practices, and then after that, like we also kind of found it we took a step back to just think about it and we were like, well, like it's not really a community-based approach since they're just asking like some student organizations, and we just didn't really like that a lot. So they also invited us to go and like present in their um meeting, and we did tell them like, hey, we recommend, instead of us making recommendations for any specific things, we recommend you all having more of a community based approach. And like after but also during the meeting I kind of just like realized that, you know, the change isn't going to come from this institutions, that has to come more from a community based approach. And yeah, because like they made it seem like it's going to be such a long process to do any updates to the policies. And like even until now, like my one of my, I guess, next culture, she's still like working on some of this stuff, and it seems like a very very slow process. And yeah, I understand, but I don't know, it was just like very, I would say, disappointing to see how like they were very also in a way capitalistic, because they kept saying like, yeah, we just don't have enough money to do this and that. But like when I think like a lot of the UCs have a lot of funds, like their, I forgot, their endowments, and like uh, it's just, I think I saw another video about like how they were explaining the endowment is mostly for like the rich people that are like I guess, how do I say that word? Oh my god. But overall, it just made me upset that they didn't prioritize like students' needs and like how they are anchor institutions and how they could have a lot of change, but they're not taking those steps. But yeah, that's just a thought I had.
Thank you all for what you've contributed so far. And I just wanted to speak quickly. Yeah, like Elvia, everything about what you were saying is really important because I think, and I put this in the chat, there's often the expectation that young people are going to come up with all the brilliant solutions to get us out of these troubles, and they are, but at the same time, they're being met with resistance, and they're not being met with opportunities to get access to resources and real decision-making power. So there's, again, this tension, there's conflict that exists. So inviting folks to take a moment and just reflect, like, are you an alumni of a university? Are there ways in which you can use your power that has been conferred just by the design of this culture to support and empower young people? whether that's donating to causes, or again, just like making yourself available as a mentor, or a resource for folks who are trying to do this work in a really uncertain and challenging time. So there, again, there's magic when we come together. And I'm going to leave it at that. There's so much more to talk about. Oh my gosh. I know when we are also checking in and prepping for this conversation, just kind of getting a sense of what's really important to us, this concept of intergenerational trauma and intergenerational healing also came up, which could be its own entire session. But again, we're working to heal the culture here and taking a closer look at transition. It's like, how can we take this opportunity to truly lead and kind of reweave together this fabric of humanity that we know we need? There's studies showing that elders are healthier and happier when they have opportunity to interact and share their gifts in an intergenerational way, that youth feel supported and feel empowered in an organic, non-patronizing way when, again, these community supports are in place. So I'm just going to open it up around this topic. And again, folks, take it where you need to go, because you have a lot to offer.
Yeah, I would like to speak on the issue, or not the issue, but the point of intergenerational healing. And again, I want to share an experience of mine personally that I think is could be insightful or whatever. But so when I moved here to Humboldt 3 or so years ago, I was in a place of coming out of a lot of trauma, coming out of addiction, coming out of this, like basically kind of like this victim of like the pharmaceutical industry and, the education system and suburban colonialism type environment. And so like coming out of that, coming here, I was just like, the way I saw the world was just so dark and so bitter. And I just was just kind of looking for anything to give me hope. And I started working at a daycare. So I was working with like 3 to 5 year old age range. And I will say it, like that job alone was the most healing experience for me, like being able to just get in touch with like my innocence after having been so like I said, like traumatized and broken from like the world, like very bitter about things. It was just being able to step back into that childlike mentality where, anything's possible and everyone's beautiful. And, I'm not thinking about tomorrow and I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm just like here and I'm present. And being able to like be with that was so great. But again, it's not something like being with people outside of your age range, being with the younger generation is actually like, think about unless you have kids, like when's the last time that you would actually be exposed to something like that? When's the last time that you've actually been exposed to collaborating with other generations? And so a lot of people are being withheld from that experience, just because it's not something that's valued in our society. And it's not something that's really easy unless you want to get a job at a daycare or you want to be like a teacher. And it's like, unless you want this to be your whole career path in life, it's almost like, or have kids, it's completely inaccessible. And then, and for the young people, like how can they spend time with older people and learn from them, unless it's like their parents or their family. But they're like, there's not a lot of way for young people to connect with community members that are older than them. And I think that like there's just so much value in spending time with other generation, like people that are younger than you, people that are older than you, learning from them, healing from them, getting in touch with your youth and your innocence, and recognizing that like there's so much wisdom in the way that young people go about their life and the way that young people perceive reality that we often overlook and dismiss because they're young, whatever, they don't know, they're just kids, they're naive, they're just playing. But I think that the fact that so many adults or older people having lost touch with that, it hinders their ability to really like be present in the current times and like be creative in solutions. And I just think that there's so much that we can learn from the youth and ways that they can help heal us. Because so many of us, we're all victims of the institution in one way or another, right? And that being broken in that way is in being jaded by our experiences and what we've gone through and the way that we've been, impacted by the institution. I think that like spending time with youth and like bringing them into this would be such a healing experience for us too. And so like finding value in that, I think, is really important. So I just wanted to share that little thought.
Thank you, Sabrina. I really liked how you mentioned like the need for intentionality. Because if you're not intentional about forming these relationships, it's very unlikely to just naturally happen. Why? It's because we were taught to, like stay within your age group essentially. So like we're unlearning this sense of like stigmatizing elders or old people or however you want to categorize them. And we do that with every other group too. It's not just an intergenerational thing. We other groups based on how tall they are, their proximity to us, we just other people. And so it's just another category of us othering ourselves from people who may have similar beliefs or ideologies, but you will never be able to expose those things unless you have an intentional, way of like reaching that person, of showing them that you care, of allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And keep in mind, especially when I was in my younger adolescence and entering adulthood, I remember I was taking a chance a lot with people, like often strangers, just because I was gung-ho and like kind of a go-getter. And I was saying, all right, lead me, help me, right? And a lot of the times those didn't pan out to long-term relationships, or they didn't get me to my career, or they didn't get me to that next job. They taught me something. They taught me to not be so trusting. They taught me to be critical, right? And so from those lessons, I grew more calloused as an individual. And so now I understand that I don't have to be friends with everybody. I don't have to, like have the, like, you don't have to burn bridges, but you also don't have to focus on bridges that aren't taking you anywhere, right? And so, like for me, it's kind of like I want to shadow that same thing on the other side. So like a young person taking a chance, right? We often only think about the elderly person taking a chance on the young person. Like, is this person really teachable? Are they ready for this step, or should they finish school first, right? Like I had a mentor tell me to not go back to college to pursue my career as a car salesman, because he was like, you got the act for it, you got the character, like you should do this. And he was like, yeah, like you could go back to school whenever you wanted, and I was like, well, actually, I'm in the position to just go back to school now. I thought I didn't have this funding. It went through. I'm going to not take your advice and go to school. And he was upset, right? He invested in me. He was teaching me his ways to be a car salesman. And I was, kind of like in on it for a while. But at the end of the day, I had to make that decision for my education, for my future. And so like that was something that I learned a lot from, because I had the opportunity at like 19 years old to be a car salesman in Berkeley, California. And I could have been making a lot of money. Like, right, I would definitely have a lot more money than I have right now. But would I be as fulfilled? Would I be as content? No, because I would be living with my mom still. I wouldn't have my own place. I wouldn't have met the love of my life, who's my partner now. And so, things worked out for the better. And I don't have any regrets, not because, I'm not making a lot of money, but I don't have any regrets because I lived that experience. I didn't lose that college experience opportunity for the sake of like meeting my fiscal needs.
Thank you for that, Oscar. I also just want to let our panelists know, like, please, again, there's so much to discuss here. Yeah, think about some threads that you want to offer, but we're going to shift into a more kind of group discussion, because I know, we have elders in the audience, we have various perspectives and folks born at different times and gone through different things together. So we want to harvest, again, that collective wisdom. So just letting folks know about that transition. So yeah, John, Elbia, Ash. there any thoughts you'd like to offer? We're not closing, we're just going to shift more into a larger group discussions.
One thread I'd like to mention that acts like a bridge for me in social movement work and relating to other people is what's come to be called artivism, and the degree to which it's possible, for example, I'm a sociologist, that we don't have sociological articles and books that are current enough and smart enough and willing to speak directly enough to the crisis we have. So we're reading all kinds of, not just texts that come from all over and outside academia primarily, but we're looking at film, we're looking at novels, fiction, and it's a tremendous vehicle around which to imagine futures that are mostly that are better. Actually, we don't have enough fiction about better futures in this crisis. And I could say a lot more about this, but artivism is certainly crucial to the work of Ecovista. If you go to the website, you'll see a fantastic video right on the front. You'll see the zine that is produced called The Radical. We actually have a Ecovista Climate Justice Press. We publish ebooks. In some sense, people whose books might not be published otherwise, including my own. And I just want to put in a word for, I think one of the folks here is one of my sort of heroes in terms of fiction that speaks to the possibility of change. And I just want to say that Rivera's son seems to be on the call, and I don't want to put her on the spot or change the direction of the conversation, but I think that she's a bridge among generations and use of fiction to tell stories that no one else is telling.
Thanks for that, John. I'll just briefly say it's been amazing listening to everyone, hearing everyone's perspectives, and about a subject I feel really passionate about, having been not too long ago in the youth category, having moved out of that age range, which has been expanding over the years, but having worked really closely with people who are a lot older than me, that I feel like I've experienced what intergenerational organizing can feel like in the positive sense, and it's totally worth all the challenges of getting there. When it works, it's absolutely amazing. And as was said by Jessica earlier, it is what makes us human, and it's incredible. So yeah, and you know, in writing, that's one of the things that I find is most resonating with people, is having the voices from the many generations speak their truths, add their wisdom, and be integrated with one another, because we all bring our different strengths. So thank you. Thank you for this amazing conversation tonight.
I just want to acknowledge really quickly how beautiful and alive our chat is right now. So there's some exchange happening here. It's really great.
May I also introduce my colleague, Katie Murray, who
Hi.
has something to say.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably echoing a couple of things that people were already saying earlier, but I'm going to scoot her a little closer. Yeah, but going to this talk definitely made me remember about being a younger person and doing various kinds of organizing within my community. And I think the main thought that I have is just, I think it would be better to teach younger and younger students how to create an organization themselves so that they can self-organize. I remember like one of the things that I really had a problem with, say when I was in like high school, was that the amount of time that we had to organize ourselves while being within the school system was only a half an hour. So there wasn't really much that we could get done. And the people that were working with us, the kinds of things that they had were not necessarily the most practical things that they were offering. There were a lot of institutional hoops that we had to jump through in order to do organizing that the people that we were working with had no clue that we had to jump through. Like just, it was really simple things because I was doing peace organizing at the time. We had to get all of our pamphlets looked at by the principal, and we had to get people, you know, approved to come to the school. So anything that we were trying to do really had to go through just all of these hoops. And I feel like people didn't necessarily understand the kinds of things that we were working with. I think one thing that I was involved with a little bit later on was I was lucky enough to grow up in Santa Barbara. So we had something called the Pro Youth Coalition, which I actually don't know if it's still around. I created a focus group with some other folks from high school, and we talked about like, what are the issues that the youth found most pressing? And the thing was that came up over and over and over again was that we wanted to have a community center. Now, the thing is, like, because I got older, I ended up aging out of that program, was no longer able to organize with them. And because the kinds of change takes so long, so much of the time, when they finally did enable a community center in that activities league, and
Uh-oh. Katie, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know where I left off there, but I'm just saying, like, the kinds of projects that you're able to be a part of. I think Elva was talking about it. People want to they want to talk to the youth and get some ideas to get you as a free think tank. But then when it comes to actually having skills to be able to implement those things, it's really hard because the university itself is very impractical. And yet the kind of system that we have really wants to privilege that as the highest ideal, rather than giving people skills. I want to say it's really a lot of times the structures that we have that I think are so much of the problem. Like, for example, like, this is really great, this transition initiative group that y'all are a part of. But I mean, you know, I took a permaculture training such a long time ago, but in California, the land is so expensive. You know, I had all this training, but I don't actually have a place to actually implement it necessarily until lately. The one last thing I wanted to say is I've been reading and listening to things about community care. And I think one thing I think would be really important is to lift up the things that youth are already doing to support each other, because I think that's a life skill that's going to cut across whatever kind of organization. And when you're building bridges with other people, and anybody who's marginalized has that skill. And I think that talking about the skills that people already have and lifting that up and creating structures around that, whether that's through the internet or many other ways, as much as we can to lift up the skills that people already have and are not seen as valuable, but are the very skills that help us to survive, is where I'd like to see people's energy go. Check.
Thank you for that, Katie. There was so much there. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge like the superpower that our youth are carrying with their ability to navigate the internet, having been born into that experience. And during one of our conversations as well, we presence like what would be cooler than like intergenerational skill shares, where young people can help elders navigate social media and stay connected. And again, that those different languages that we sometimes may speak around this kind of work, how do we create bridges and opportunities for exchange? And then skills, again, that young people are looking for, that a lot of elder folk are carrying, we can transmit them through Zoom. You know, it is challenging, but there's a lot of opportunity when we tap into these gifts. And I want to open this up again to the larger group. I've again seen a lot of amazing activity in the chat, and just want to invite folks, especially again elders in the audience, to offer us your responses, your perspectives. Again, that document that I shared is an open place for you. Under the vision and action plan portion, please make note of experiences, priorities, wants, and needs. It is more free flowing, but it will be available to you even after this session. And that's my hope, is that we continue to use it. So check there, opening it up. Okay, Marissa Stack, yes.
Oh, thank you. This is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for so long. I started working with transition when I was 25, I'm 33 now and almost no longer a youth. Moving out of youth. One thing I wanted to mention is sometimes I think about it like youngers and elders. It's like, it's a spectrum, and yeah, it's a spectrum. So it's all relative. We talked about that a little bit before y'all came in the room. Dawn and I are both exiting youngers. Yeah, and like I'm an elder compared to the little ones who I hang out with, but in some ways I still think of myself as a youth or a younger. My experience in college was just seeing the passion, the creativity, and the the energy and the time that people in that age range can have. That was one of the most like inspiring projects I've ever done, youth organizing. And working in a local transition initiative, I saw that kind of energy, which has been described as like, we don't know it's impossible yet. That's what we need in this time. But then I wanted to connect with what Oscar was saying about it's an art form. I would like us to have more of these spaces so we can really learn the dance of collaborating intergenerationally, because what I've seen is that that inspired passion can clash with like reality of like bureaucracy and organizing and dealing with, legal and financial stuff. And our transition Sebastopol group wasn't very successful at intergenerational collaboration, and we kind of ended up with 2 different groups. And young people we need mentors to teach us about how to buy land and start a community. Also, we need resources. This is one of the biggest moments for intergenerational wealth transfers, and I appreciated John Duvall like presencing in the chat. It's really hard being in this economy as a young person, and like, wow, how do I even get basic security, let alone address this multitude of crises that I'm being dealt with. So yes, we need resources too, and we need to co-design like democratic structures for using those resources in a good way. And I think there's an art that youth need to learn to listening and valuing the wisdom of elders. And I've seen that true in the opposite as well. When I received accidentally an email forwarded to me when I first started working with Transition US with some older organizers saying like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing because she's young. Like there was some disagreement we had, and it was about organizing an event. And I never said to them like, I have a ton of experience actually. I organized events for heads of state before I came to work for Transition US. I know what I'm doing. I just had to prove that like over years of showing up and doing good work. And I'm okay with that, but it's a lot. And so, yes, I've had that experience, and I want to make sure we don't devalue the work of elders or youngers. So thank you all, and I'm really excited to keep this conversation going. I was thinking maybe if we do another one of these, we can flip the format and invite more sharing from elders. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here and making this happen.
So, Jessica, may I jump in for a sec?
Yes, I did. I had Shelly and then you next on stack. Does that sound accurate?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Fine.
Okay. Awesome.
I would like to thank Marissa for talking about young people needing to make a living. We've run into that a lot. We hear that a lot. This is a huge stress for the young people that we have worked with. We'd just like to say that I have worked with our youth in college situations. We live in a university town, and also at the high school, there have been some students in both places, high school and university, that have been very interested in climate change. We're a climate change activist. And we worked together and put on forums, and we said, okay, you guys, you have a chance. You're so well-spoken, you know what to say. Here, we're going to create an opportunity for you to speak. And we create these panels, and we start to build relationships. We drove one young couple, we drove them with us to the Citizens Climate Lobby conference. And you build relationships, and you love them, and they love you, and then they're gone, because their lives are continually changing, and they're going off to a different school, or they're going to another place. And you hope that somehow that relationship continues, but you don't see each other, you know? So as much as you want to build this relationship and you've put into it, it's hard to maintain it when lives are at a stage in life when they just have to go off in different directions.
Go ahead, John.
Hi. So I want to tell like a really brief story about my own life, and then address all the 15 to 25-year-olds in the audience. You will never have a clearer sense of what's going on in the world than you do right now. I know that's hard to believe, but when you're in school, when you're young, when you're looking to the future, you know as much, you know the important things right now. You don't have to wait until you're 50 or 70 to really understand what's going on in the world. My own story, I was very much, when I was 25, where a lot of you guys are now. And I did what so many people in my generation did, worrying about career. And, I pursued a career, I got a job, I made a good income, and I'm now retired as of last year. I feel younger now than I have felt in decades, because now, again, I have the freedom to do what I want to do. I can set my own goals and my own purposes. And it's very liberating, but it comes at the cost of 40 years of working, doing things that maybe weren't my first choice to do. So I just want to, I know it's terribly unempowering to feel like you're growing up in a society that's falling apart and collapsing economy and democracy and all this stuff. But I will tell you that you will never be more empowered in a way than you are right now, because you can't see right now what the rest of your life may achieve. But if you really commit to pursuing the goals that you think are really important, then maybe, 40 or 50 years from now, you'll be able to look back on what you've accomplished instead of what you haven't accomplished by worrying about, the more mundane sorts of things. We're heading into a very chaotic future, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think any of us does, but it's that making that commitment to your deepest values and your deepest sense of purpose will empower you in the future, no matter what else happens. So that's my story.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Shelley. Again, folks, we have about, I wish we had more time. But yeah, more comments. And I do want to direct us back to the document that was shared. There's no requirement that you add anything there. This is going to be there's going to be more conversations coming out of this, and we will resend the link out so that you can keep this as a resource. I feel like this is a really important priority, in case like that didn't come across. We've had some amazing insight today. So again, we want to keep this work alive. So any other folks on Stack that I'm missing too, just want to check there. Okay, let's see. John, go ahead. John Porn.
Oh, maybe she meant
I think
did it send as me.
So
So
is that
Jess, I sent you a message.
Okay, cool. It's from you. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been listening to this podcast lately called All My Relations, which is a native podcast, and it's been really hard to listen to. Really hard. I feel like a lot of the things that were in it are really, really real. And trying to think how to say this. Yeah, I think that living in this age of so many crises and the type of anxiety that people feel around that really is going to lead to a lot of great things. But living in this age of anxiety that we have, the people on the podcast, they were talking about as youth really wanting to fit everything into every possible second that they could and wanting to achieve all of their goals as quickly as possible. So I think if we're thinking about allying with youth, we really need to have tangible goals and specific and particular things that we're offering in doing that. Because the people that we're talking, they did become professors, but they talked about like basically, and there's cookies I think ready in the background here. I don't know if you can hear that, but basically like living as if like a dog is following them at their heels, trying to bite them, like trying to fit everything in at every possible moment because they had the knowledge that they might not live that long because of the way statistics were bearing things out. So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there in terms of when we're working with different communities, they might have different ideas of what type of time scale they have. I was listening to another talk, and they were about disability justice, about a new book that's come out that's called Care Work. And the people there were talking about living in dog years. But they just, their time scale that they have in conceptualizing their life is just different because that's the reality that they live in. So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there. Check.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, I have Theo and then Sabrina next on the stack. And then I just want to invite folks to be mindful of our time so that everyone can kind of get their voice in as well. Thank you.
Hello, relatives. To take it from the top, and I think the highest vision is the sort of ceremonial space that Indigenous leaders take you to and during a sweat lodge, which is where we're like in the human family and we're part of creation and, and really deepening us down into life, into our spirits, into our souls and whatnot. And, our society, I think that's like the great medicine, right? Is to really be deepened and to work on your young soul or old soul or whatever, and our society is very sick, and I've been really it's been really interesting to hear the young people who are so ill-adjusted to their sick society. And I just want to clap and applaud you and say thank you for being so, ill-adapted to a world gone wrong. And I hope you stick with the climate movement and make a world that's just. And I just want to say that it's out there. There is a climate movement. There is a movement to save the planet and the people. And, that's encouraging. Get involved. It's no time to give up yet, man. We haven't even really tried to save the planet yet. We're just like ExxonMobil's in charge and we give them money, like 5 billion trillion a year, just funnel. You guys know it's madness. However, things change, movements change things. And think, so I heard some, just, for young people who just want to jump off a cliff because what they know about climate, I just say, man, we can save this planet through the, Paul Hawkins stuff about breakthrough. We can draw down the carbon. We're not going anywhere. We're not quitting, man. So, the 7 generations planning of the Lakota, how do we take care of water and really think ahead? That's the medicine culture we need. So I put a link in the document. I'm part of organizing for the People's Party to start a new major third party to challenge the duopoly. And in that resource, I quote Greta Thunberg, which says, so we need a party that operates at the level of Greta Thunberg. Like, she's right. The young people see things clearly, how things are. And we can't, that urgency to really, really act. And so I encourage young people to get involved with that movement and to the transition movement. And we love your urgency. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, people.
Thank you, Theo. Sabrina.
Yeah, so this has been a really great conversation. And I think that this conversation can continue and branch off into many different directions, and those directions can continue. But I think that a big important component to this discussion, and like this could be something that is maybe in the future, but a plan. Like, okay, so we have this passion, let's get the youth involved, intergenerational collaboration, let's do it. But how do we actually implement that? Like, what's our strategy? What are actual action steps that we can take to do this, so we're not all just walking away being like, yeah, I totally agree with that, but I have no idea like how to actually implement any of that or pursue any of that. And so yeah, like this is something that I even personally, like, I don't have all the answers for this, and I think that like a bigger group think would be really valuable. But one of the things I wanted to share that our organization is doing is that Cooperation Humboldt is very active in the community. There's a lot of different projects going on within the organization that are being facilitated by different people, different groups. So like, is there a way to bring any young people into those projects? Is there a way to reach out to local vocational counselors at high schools, local transitional age youth organizations, and ask them like, hey, I have an opportunity for, 1 or 2 or 3 or however many young people to be involved. Is there a way that this young person can like receive credit for this? Is there a way that this opportunity can be counted as an internship for youth? Because from my experience with reaching out with the local youth organizations in my community, there's so many ways that they can work with local organizations and kind of like make things happen, and everyone's so willing and open to wanting to collaborate and wanting to support one another, that like I've been met with nothing but like, oh my God, this is such a good idea. Like, how can we help? How can we collaborate? How can we create this? And so there is ways for like high school age kids, depending on where they're going or whatever. And also I'm sure college age kids to get like credits, either school credit or possibly like there's different funding that's available to like pay for an internship opportunity for like a youth to work at an organization. So the actual organization wouldn't even have to be the one to pay the youth. There's like actual like funding available in different places like that. And that's obviously something that needs to be like explored, but like then do that, put in that work, reach out to your local youth organizations, ask them how they get young people connected to job opportunities, ask them if there's ways for young people to receive credit for community work, and then create those opportunities within your organization, within your business. Like, make that happen. It is possible. And if you're wondering like, what's the first step would be finding the organizations in your community that serve youth, are like empower youth, are very active with youth, and schools too, like vocational counselors in schools. Reach out to them, make those connections, and see if there's ways that like your business or your organization can support or create opportunities for young people to get involved. And it's very possible, and and then like organizing that would be the next step. And so I'm sure there's other ways to go about it, but I just wanted to express like something that we've kind of been pursuing, and that I've met with a lot of success and like really well received.
Yes. Oscar, you're next on stack.
I'm so glad you guys get to see the kick-ass spirit of my colleague Sabrina. She is definitely a youth advocate to the max. It's even rubbed off on me, and it was because I wasn't exposed to this, and so the exposure has brought me to a sense of just a mental shift. But I want to touch base on what Theo was saying earlier about this generation not being silenced. We will not allow us to be silenced. And just because the other prior generations would, in quote, be successfully silenced, that doesn't mean that like they didn't have like the same fight. It's the same fight. And I only say that because like not everyone was silenced back then. People still tied themselves to trees and like fought, like, and I've been to protests and demonstrations locally here in Humboldt, and we see teens, adolescents, young adults, elderly, middle-aged individuals all fighting for the same thing. And so that just goes to show that this battle has been happening for forever. It's not like it's new, and I think this generation has all the abilities and tools to really respond to it. And so yeah, Ms. Thornburg is correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, so much more we could talk about. We are at the end of our time here together. I'm going to drop the link to the document again for folks. And I'm really happy to see that folks have been contributing on there and adding in resources and needs and things like that. So again, this is a living space to continue this work. And we do also have a national network strategy call coming up. And I'll be totally honest, I'm like forgetting the date and everything. So if anyone knows what that is, I'll leave it there. But thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to our panelists. So much more work to do. Thank you.
Our next national network strategy call is March 23rd, and it's on deepening our power analysis. It's going to be very juicy.
And I don't know if we have to pull the cord really right away, but if anyone wants to go off of mute and just speak out how you're feeling and maybe name some music that you're going to listen to after this, because I want to keep that energy going for y'all. And yeah, thank you. I'm off mute.
Thank you, Jessica and Marissa and everyone, and hi to all my friends.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Yay.
Thanks, everybody. This is great.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Appreciating getting to listen, and I feel I got inspired just entering into the space. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's all do it together. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Have a great evening.